of this school district can be determined. I have been advised by Department Legal that according to statute, the State Superintendent of Education has to technically refer this to the three bodies. So this is a technical correction.
I'd second the motion to add the technical wording.
Anyone object to the change? So moved.
Okay, the next item is item 23, and it's a read. A motion of Ms. Buquet, seconded by Mr. Romer. The Finance Committee recommends that the board defer on the following contract, and this is the 8G evaluators. Board members, Ms. Johnson and Mr. Geis asked the 8G work group to meet again this morning. We met with Bessie staff, and this is our recommendation. I move to authorize Bessie staff to contract up to $50,000 for evaluations of statewide programs except the Bessie Special Schools and block literacy projects.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Bouquet, by Ms. Dastiu, seconded by Ms. Bouquet. Any objection? So moved.
Oh, I have, Mr. Chairman, I have moved that the minutes of the Minimum Foundation Program public hearing held on Wednesday, October 20th at 9 a.m. be approved.
Second. Second by Mr. Lee. Any question or any objection? And so moved.
I'm sorry. Good morning. Item 10C, High School Redesign Committee. Ms. Johnson.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes, it is me. Thank you very much. On behalf of the High School Redesign Committee, I move approval of items 1 through 5.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Johnson, second by Mr. Romer. Any questions? Any objections? So moved.
10D, Legal Due Process Committee.
Mr. President, on behalf of Mr. Dale Bayard, I move that the board accept recommendations 1 and 2 in global.
Motion by Ms. Givens. Second by Ms. Dastiu. Any objection? Motion approved.
10E, Legislative Committee.
Mr. President, I move that we accept items 1 and 2 as recommended by the committee in global.
Motion by Ms. Givens, seconded by Ms. Dastiu.
I have some technical information that I'd like to add to. At the bottom, you notice that I made a request that we get a chronological list of any changes to the Recovery School District laws.
I was going to get to that.
Since 2005, I'd like to have this information prior to our December meeting.
Do you want to add that as a motion, Ms. Johnson?
No, it's not a motion. It was a request. I want it to stay like it is. I just want to make sure that it is understood that I want the information prior to the December meeting,
Do you have a date in mind?
before the December meeting.
When do you want it?
I mean, like, you want it, do you want it in the packet, Ms. Johnson, or do you
I want it prior to the December meeting. Is that understood?
Yes, we
Anybody in
do.
the department who doesn't understand prior to the December meeting?
Ms. Johnson,
Yes, and I'll show you what that means.
Okay.
you all right, Ms. Johnson?
Yeah. Was fine.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the Legislative Committee minutes. Any objections?
Oh, ho, ho.
So moved.
10F, Quality Leaders Educators Committee. Ms. Buquet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Quality Leaders Educators Committee met on Tuesday, October 19th, and I move approval of items 1 through 8.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Johnson. Any objections? Motion approved.
10G, Recovery School District Committee. Mr. Romer.
Yes, on behalf of the Recovery School District, I move approval of items 1 through 33, I believe, noting that item 33 is an NOI.
Second. I'd like to ask a question.
I have some questions
All
as
right.
well.
I have a motion and a second. Any objections?
I think you have some questions.
What, you have a question beforehand, okay?
Yep.
All right,
Johnson was first.
Ms. Givens and Mrs. Johnson.
Johnson yelling at me. Ms. Johnson was first.
Johnson.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're up first.
We had and it follows I think it's called H1 or something, G1. But we had a public hearing. I just would like for the department to tell me how we're integrating within the plan the information that came from the public hearing.
I'll make some comments, and they may want to extrapolate. I was going to get to the meeting minutes next. We did have a public hearing in New Orleans at McDonough 35. The notes from that meeting are the minutes from that meeting are currently in a draft form to give you basically the outline of that meeting, and we're now going through the minutes, which, by the way, was about 4.5 hours worth of meetings. We're going through the minutes now to capture the comments as accurately as we can. One thing that made it a little bit more difficult is that many of the comments, while important, weren't exactly specific to the agenda. So it's given them a little bit more time to go through and make sure we capture the essence of what was said. I don't know if Ms. Gibbons wants to elaborate or staff wants to elaborate further on that.
Board members, what I did yesterday was to prepare a copy for Ms. Vosberg from the notes that I took at the meeting. These are not the official minutes. I want to make that clear. This is a draft to give you an idea of what the general gist of the public comments were, and as well as who spoke at the meeting. And I think that Ms. Vosberg has made enough copies so that we can distribute them to the members of the audience. I want to again emphasize that these are not official minutes. These are based on my notes. And as Ms. Vosberg is going through the tape, she will be able to redact and dictate for us for December the official minutes of the public hearing. But this will give you something to read between now and our next meeting, which is in December. And I guess if we could prepare that, we could send it to board members sometimes in November to give you a chance to fully digest the minutes.
I will add for members' benefit as well. I believe the department's working on a list of kind of frequently asked questions or comments that are going to be posted as well on the web in addition to the minutes. And we also have, I don't know that it's up yet, but it will soon be, access via online for people to make additional comments, so that this will be a continuous gathering of comments between now and December, and give people as much access as we can to make comments for that transition plan.
And Mr. Chair, I'm not so sure that we have directed the posting or the opening of the opportunity to post comments on the web, and I'm not so sure that it can just be done without motion of this board to make it official.
Okay, we can't, I will say this.
I'm not sure, where's legal to give, I don't see him, he left, right?
I think there are some technical elements to getting
There
on
are
the
some
web.
technical
I'll
elements,
say
but-
this, we can make a motion to that effect, everyone's in agreement to do
Well,
that.
I need to know, and Jim Herdlicker retired, I'm looking for him and he's not here, but I need someone to tell me legally, Joan Hunt, what the requirements are. We did not announce it before we had the public meeting, but the superintendent wants to open the web responses so that those can be received. Do they then become part of the official record, or are they just additional comments? And what does the board have to do to start that process?
Okay, you had a public meeting.
Turn your mic on, Joan.
It is. You had a public meeting that was properly announced and advertised?
Yes.
Okay. And now you want to,
I don't want to do anything.
okay. Now the question is, can public comments be accepted on the webpage?
And what will be their status is comments since they were not part of the original notice.
Can I make a comment about what I thought the intention was, and it may or may not impact? You know, the intention was not to make it part of the public hearing.
I don't
this
know.
web connect.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, that was mine. Now, somebody
Okay.
can correct me if I'm wrong. The intention was merely to give people a vehicle to give us their thoughts, whether it be part of an official meeting or not, and we can all
I
review
understand
those
that.
thoughts. That was my
But
intention.
this is the thing, Chaz,
You tell
even
me.
if that is your intention, we have to put that on we have to notice that on the portal, because You don't want people to think that they're making comments that are going to be a part of the official record, and they're not. So, I mean, I'm just asking for
I would
legal
direct
guidance.
staff, in that instance, I would direct staff, I don't know what is and is not appropriate in terms of public notice.
That's what I'm asking.
If there is a public notice or some detail that needs to be put on the web along with the portal that people are going to be using to make comments, I would make a motion that we direct staff and legal at Department of Ed or Bessie to make sure the appropriate notices are given at the appropriate time.
Absolutely, but if we don't tell them, if they don't know that they need to do it or think about it, and that's what we are here. So I'm asking, what's the board's responsibility?
I just made a motion to give them the authority to post the appropriate comments, if there is any.
Second.
That might be a good motion. Would you let me know what you find out?
I certainly will.
Thank you. Mr. President, there's a motion made. The motion is to give the Department of Education staff authority to find out legally how to handle the posting of additional comments, and that they will not be part of the official record of the public hearing. Is that right, Mr. Roman?
No, I thought he also gave them the right to go ahead and post whatever wording they needed.
Right. No, I don't think, Mr. Roman said he was not trying to make that part of the official record.
No, I said, I would, look, I think we ought to have the portal on the website where people can make comments. And we're directing staff to, if there is need for a certain language or notification to accompany that, to make sure it's done properly to do so. That's
That's what his motion is.
That may be, but that doesn't address whether or not it becomes part of the public record. And that is the point of what I'm trying to ascertain. Can we make it part of the public record? If so, put the appropriate language. If we can't, then put that language. But whatever you do, you have to post what's going to be the outcome of someone replying in that regard. Am I correct, Joan? Now, whether they can or they can't, you still have to let the public know what the effect of responding in this manner is going to be. Now,
I
you
think
can
that's
take
clear.
that. No, it's not clear from Ms. Motion, Ms. Johnson. I think Ms. Hunt understands where I'm going.
Seems to be clear to me then.
Okay, so we haven't,
Nothing clear when I
I hope we're back to approving your motion to accept the minutes of the Recovery School District Committee. Mr. Romer?
I don't know if we shouldn't dispose of the first motion first, which dealt with items 1 through 33
I think so.
first.
That's what I'm
And then come
suggesting
back.
now. All right, any objection to that? So moved. Now,
Now, that my previous motion, I believe, is still in order, which is to direct staff to put the appropriate language when they determine what that is next to the public comment or whatever you want to call it when that we're putting on the web.
And who seconded that motion, please?
I'm sorry?
Who seconded that motion, please?
I'll second. Okay.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or objections? So moved.
10H, State Authorized School Oversight Committee.
Yes, on behalf of the State Authorized School Oversight Committee, I'd like to move approval of items 1 through 7, noting that item number 8 is being pulled for discussion.
I'd like to.
Do I have a second to that motion?
Second it.
All right, second by Ms. Johnson.
I'd like to actually make a comment about 6, pull number 4 to read, and pull number 7 to read.
I'd like clarification.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. President,
1 second, Mr. Garvey.
I'm sorry, are you going to recognize the requests to speak, or should I?
no,
Well,
he should.
first of all, you've made the motion.
Yes.
Does your motion include the ones that's been pulled?
No, it didn't. I think
All
that Ms.
So
Johnson
let's-
is making either an amendment to my motion or a substitute motion.
Well, are you, Ms. Johnson and Ms. Givens, you asking for 4 and 7?
I'm not
Be
asking
full.
for any of that. I have a whole separate request that I was told was being handled by Mr. Garvey, and I haven't heard it yet. That's why I'm asking for clarification.
Ms. Givens, I think that the number that, or the issue that you're asking about is number 8, which I request to be pulled for discussion.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I don't even know what developmental therapy is. That's not what I'm asking.
Let's stop now. Which ones have we asked to be pulled for discussion, Mr. Garvey?
Ms. Johnson asked 4 and 7, and I have a note that Ms.
Wait,
Gibbons
whoa, 4 and
requested
7?
number 8.
Okay, so let's approve all but 4,
Mr.
7,
Geis.
and 8.
Mr. Geis, I think Ms. Johnson also wanted to pull 6, so that would be pulling 4, 6, 7, and 8.
Okay. Any objections to the rest of the items being approved? Okay, so let's go to item 4 then.
Item number 4, on motion of Ms. Lee, seconded by Mr. Geis, the State Authorized School Oversight Committee recommends that the board receive the report on personnel actions requiring board approval for the Bessie Special Schools and the Special School District.
Okay, the
There
reason-
were none.
Right. The reason why I pulled this is because I couldn't figure out where to ask my question, and I'm trying to find out where the juvenile justice children fit within the special school district, and if some discussions concerning the fact that we have them in here have been made between our department and whatever other department that needs to talk about them, and then to ask for a report on what's happening by December.
Where the Office of Juvenile Justice fits, Elizabeth Moore Special School District, I'm sorry. Ms. Johnson, on personnel actions, if there were any reportable personnel actions,
I'm sorry, Ms. Moore, I'm not looking for personnel actions. I'm only asking this question because this was the only item that referred, where I could talk about the juvenile justice. What
Okay.
I'm trying to find out, we put them in the MFP back in June, I guess, or sometimes, and I'm trying to see what kind of program and plan we have for addressing the educational needs. So it had nothing to do with personnel.
let me see how best to say this. Special school district provides educational services within those juvenile justice facilities where we're asked to. As far as the MFP and future educational services, that discussion was between the department and the Office of Juvenile Justice, but I was really not at the table for that.
Okay, I'm going to try this again, because what I'm trying, we have children who are in a facility, and all I'm trying to understand is because we have dollars that are associated with them, what are we doing in terms of their education? And I don't need to know right now. You can bring me a report in December, but I just need to know it. I need to understand how this is working out. We have 3 facilities that I believe we put in that require educational, and I don't know if you all know this or not, but we also have all of these alternative schools that we have certain kinds of issues with, and I'm trying to understand educationally how this is working out and what we're supposed to do. That's all I'm trying to figure out here. I don't care about the personnel. That's not my issue. I'm not really concerned about the MFP dollars. I know how they went. What I'm concerned about is the educational services that are being, quote, provided by somebody.
Right. And the Office of Juvenile Justice has an obligation to provide both regular education and special education services to the youth that are in their custody. They can do that by providing it themselves through hiring their own staff. They can do it by using SSD, through an interagency transfer, or they could contract with a private provider if that's what they chose.
Okay. Is there any way that we can find out by the December meeting what's going on educationally with the children? Who's providing and who is, and you've told me they are responsible for the educational services, okay? Thank you.
All right,
That's all I needed.
I need a motion to approve item number 4, please.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any objection? All right, item 6.
Mr. President, before we get to item 6, excuse me, I don't know what's going on with me this morning, but before we get to item 6, I wanted to say that that still does not, these items do not concern what I wanted clarity on.
Okay.
So after we finish with this, I'll get to my point.
All right,
Please.
item 6.
Item number 6, on motion of Mr. Lee, seconded by Ms. Bradford, the State Authorized School Oversight Committee recommends that the board receive the report from the Teachers Retirement System of Louisiana regarding issues surrounding charter school requests to withdraw from TRSL and defer the item until the December 2010 meeting.
I asked for that item to be pulled because I thought what we said the other day was that we would have I see the word recommendation, but that TRSL and the department would get together and work out some language that had to do with material amendments. I think that was one of the big points of discussion here. And so when I read this, I didn't see anything in it that allowed me to understand that that's what would happen. So all I'm trying to do is, and if somebody wants to tell me after so that I'm clear on that, what I will get will be a report in December regarding the big discussion that we had. I would appreciate it, because this could be, the recommendation the other day was to defer from the Department of Education. So, I mean, it could end up being the same one.
Ms. Dastiu?
Mr. Chairman and Ms. Johnson, I would actually make an amendment, make a motion to amend this motion. I do recognize, and I did chair that committee, and I do recognize that there was an agreement that there would be a meeting.
Right.
It could be captured in what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a motion because it was my understanding that it would be deferred until the sooner of the request of a district to be removed from TRSL or an IRS ruling. And that way, we make sure that something doesn't occur, that we have, you know, that we this comes before the board before we get either one of those two things occur. So my motion is to amend this motion to say, on motion of Mr. Lee, seconded by Ms. Bradford, the State Authorized School Oversight Committee recommends that the board receive the report from the Teachers Retirement System of Louisiana regarding issues surrounding charter school requests to withdraw from TRSL and defer the item until the sooner of the request of a district to be removed from TRSL or an IRS ruling. And request that all parties, Department of Education and representatives from TRSL meet. That's the end of my motion. Does that address it, Ms. Johnson?
The delay was for.
So we're going to defer until December, or if we get a ruling, which we wouldn't act on until December because of the way this is. What I'm trying to understand is that when it comes back to us, there has been some discussion between TRSL and the department on what, because the issue to me was about, is this not a material amendment?
Right.
I guess that's, and there was some clarity, and I think you all asked the board, does the board can change and say certain things are material or not? That was one of the big points of discussion here.
Johnson, there was the intent stated publicly that there would be a meeting. And I think we have Ms. Tyler confirming that. And my language is to make sure that there's not, that we have the meeting prior to, that they come back to us with a report of their meeting and recommendations prior to either the IRS ruling or
Okay, I'll live with it.
All
I
right,
guess I'll
and-
live
our
with that.
district
I'll
wanting to
just
get
bring
out
it
of
up
it.
And Mrs. Tyler, could we also note that there's an expectation that that issue of the material amendment will be addressed during that meeting? Okay.
And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I also had them to pull number 7, which I voted against, and I want to vote in favor of, but I want to vote in favor of items that are, charters that are automatically approved. If there are material amendments, they come to this board first.
Okay.
That's the
All right, let's vote on number 6 first, please. We need a second to Ms. Dastiew's motion.
What is, now,
Mrs. Bradford seconds it. Ms.
I
Givens?
just want to make sure that I understand. You're saying that we should have this meeting before either of two other things happen.
That's right.
That's right?
That's not the motion.
What is the motion?
the motion. Were you here, Ms. Givens?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, because I'm trying to
understand what we're doing
your thing.
now.
Okay, there was a stated intent to have a meeting as soon as possible, and I think there was a collective intent to do that. So that was not captured in the motion. But the recommendation from the department was we defer on this, but not not so long, but it has to come to the board before one of two things happen, or either of these two things happen, and that is, there's IRS ruling.
I said before that one of two
Okay.
things happens.
Okay.
That's all you're saying, right?
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I got that.
Oh, okay.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Lee?
My concern with the motion, it's possible we could have a recommendation by a charter school to withdraw from the retirement system, and it would have to be considered at that time. That was not a part of this, that was not a part of the recommendation from the committee.
It would come to us.
The
That triggers them
recommendation,
coming to us.
the recommendation from the committee was that we defer without any reference to a charter school making a request to withdraw.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Givens?
you will remember when this issue first came to us. The problem at that point was that we made a decision as to allow whichever school wanted to get out of the retirement system to let them leave. But what we didn't do was develop a policy as to how we would handle any more requests pending the IRS ruling. Now, as I hear it, we need to decide what we're going to do. Are we going to defer if anybody else comes? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Lee? We need to decide what happens if somebody else comes. And I thought that was a special exception granted because of something to do with June and August.
I think the superintendent was in agreement at committee meeting that this would be resolved before another recommendation was considered. And that's the reason there's no reference to this would be done unless a charter school requested removal. So it looks to me like the way it's printed is accurate, except there does need to be a reference to the meeting between the department and teachers' retirement prior to the December meeting.
I'll withdraw my motion, if everyone's comfortable with that.
Okay, motion by Mrs. Dasty has been withdrawn. Does the department have a comment to make regarding this?
No, we just wanted to make sure that we spoke the other day. I'm sorry, Karen Burke, Departmental Services, and I'm here with Joan Hunt. And just to be clear, for a charter's withdrawal from the retirement system here is per Bulletin 126 that is now listed as a non-material change that they could request. And I just want to make sure that the board understands.
Which means it would be reported to the board and that a board member could object to that amendment.
So I guess what you're saying is this will not be done without the board's approval, right?
It would be, actually, the way a non-material amendment works is it happens and a report is just made to the board. However, the board can object to the amendment. So I guess in a roundabout way, that is an approval, but yeah.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Johnson?
there are two things, and I think Ms. Dastu did capture what we were trying to do, and that is that a meeting would occur and a recommendation would come back to us, and hopefully that this, whether or not something, because there are two differences of opinions here on what makes a material amendment, and that the two bodies would get together and come to some understanding of that. That's the whole purpose of them coming together.
I don't think there's any question that the expectation is that there will be a discussion about the material amendment or non-material amendment at this committee meeting, or at this meeting with the RSL.
That's correct.
Okay. So now we're back to the motion. Mr. Lee, I think Ms. Dasty withdrew her motion, but you were saying that there needs to be some statement made regarding some change here in this motion.
I think it could be amended just to defer with a meeting by the two parties, the State Department of Education and the teacher retirement system, and then that be reported back at the December meeting.
But there will
That's
be,
what the intent of this motion
Okay.
was. That's the reason for the deferral.
okay, so are you satisfied with the motion as it is?
Yep.
All right. We need Mr. Lee makes a motion to number 6. I need a second.
Second.
Ms.